Joining us now on the Rush Radio Show, powered by Willis Automotive, the athletic director at Drake University, Brian Hardin. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Very, very good. We had an idea for you because, we're kind of goofy. But we know you're going to start go into you're going to sequester yourself looking for a coach. I think one of those old smokestacks at the field house, we do the Vatican thing. Blue smoke, no coach. White smoke, we got a coach. And then you come out in a balcony at Drake Stadium and introduce the coach.
I like it. I was trying to think if I could work Griff somehow into some type of a rollout, but I think that this, the blue smoke coming out of the field house, although any smoke coming out of the field house with how old it is would make me worry a little bit. So, not sure
balloons. We could use balloons.
That's right. It'll be maybe like a gender reveal for a baby or something.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what I said. All right.
Yeah.
I want to get to the question I absolutely want to get to is kind of what your process has been and how what you've absolutely caught lightning in a bottle a couple times here, Brian. And I would like to know what that process is, and I think a lot of people are interested in that. But first, can we just go back and kind of talk about this weekend? What an unbelievably fun ride this was.
Yeah.
An awesome season. Ben seemed like Ben was a great fit.
Yeah,
it did an awesome job with the team and just took the team on a wonderful ride. You want to talk about this weekend in Wichita for a moment?
Yeah, the weekend was incredible. I mean, it will go down as one of my best memories in my professional career. I talked to our team yesterday at 10 a.m. and just to address everything that was going on. But before I got into kind of where we're at that moment, I wanted to go backwards and thank them for what they did. The scene in Wichita was unlike anything that I've been fortunate enough to experience. And I told them, it's I've been around some really successful teams from, going back my early years of career of my third year with the Chicago Bears, we won the division and had to host a divisional playoff game. When I went to Notre Dame, we were preseason number 2 in my first year. And then my last year, we went undefeated and went to the national title game. We had a good team at Marquette. We've had some great success here at Drake, but there wasn't a team that really was as magical as this year. When you factor in everything that they went through, you had basically a whole new group that came together, and you had 4 guys that came along with Ben, and you had a couple, they came by pairs or they came by 4s. You had a couple guys from Wyoming come in, and we had a couple guys hold over, and some other folks who joined the party as well, and they created this incredible ride for so many folks to be on. And the scene in Wichita was just the culmination of all their hard work and everything that had transpired. And the conversations I had with so many people at the pregame parties there on Thursday and Saturday it was terrific. I mentioned how our alumni, Andy Verlingeth, our alumni association, did an amazing job of finding a location there in Wichita Union Station. The weather worked out perfectly. If it was Wednesday, it would have been awful. It was 10 degrees and terrible winds and cold. But we had an outdoor party with this white tent. It was folks kept talking about how we're back at Peggy's. It was like Peggy's South is kind of what it was, during Relays Week. And it was just awesome. And they came in from all over, and they love this team, and so I just thank them for what that was. And it brought you down, Ross, to come down. And that was
Brian. You brought me down. I'm not exactly.
I didn't bring you down.
You did. I'm not. I told Travis this also, man. I was going to reach out to, as I parked the car. I thought I'm gonna make sure I reach out to Brian and thank him for this because we had such a fun trip down there.
Yeah.
And I did it because of your tweet on Friday night. You sent out a tweet, and I paraphrased it yesterday. I used my East Side language, not Brian Hardin, Drake Athletic Director. Basically said, you're 5 hours away. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What are you waiting for?
Yes.
And I saw that, and I retweeted it, and it was like, all right, this is something I got to do. And I'm really glad. Thank you, sir. And thanks for doing a great job and kicking ass over there, because all of this kind of started with that and fun memories with my family because of that. So,
well, thanks for jumping in. I mean, the hometown team piece that we continue to try to build here. It's got to be more than just Drake alumni that come to these events. How do we continue to build this to where folks in our community can come down? And whether you're a Hawkeye Cyclone or transplant into our space, I mean, there's no reason why you can't support Drake or why you can't get on board with some of the stuff. And when we were going to, host a pretty cool party within a driving distance, then yeah, folks should get down there. If they weren't going to be in Milwaukee cheering on the Cyclones, they should have been in Wichita cheering on the Bulldogs.
At what point during the season, because Ben McCollum's moved on, did you realize, I better start putting names in the desk? I always hear athletic directors have the names in the desk if they have to. At what point during the season, because you probably thought when you hired Ben, I've got at least, hopefully 3 or 4, maybe 6 years like Darren gave you. At what point in the season did you go, I better start writing names down?
Yeah, good question. Because that happened. I'm trying to think back to what the moment was. I think if I had the schedule in front of me, I probably could try to pinpoint it. But it was somewhere probably in February. We got up to the 12-0 start, and then we dropped a couple games at the start of the year. We dropped a road game at UIC on New Year's Day, dropped a home game, which we hadn't done forever.
Yeah.
To Murray State. I think a lot of folks were kind of like, ooh, okay, let's see what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
And then we rattled off 11 straight wins after that. And I think it was probably somewhere in that mix. It's like, I better open this drawer. And fortunately / unfortunately, my note from last year hadn't collected a lot of dust. So I didn't have to blow too much dust off of there. But I did have to update it. I mean, there were some folks that I had on the list last year that moved on to other jobs.
Yeah.
And so and then I had to go and try to figure, okay, who else do I put on here? So it was probably somewhere there in February that I started thinking, okay, this could happen. Then at that time too, you start wondering, okay, what else is going to open? Maybe he won't get one that opens immediately, but maybe there's a domino effect. What does that look like? So then you start playing that game. It's like, yeah, I think he's going to stick here for more than a year, but I've got an obligation to Drake to be prepared and to anticipate what could happen, so we're not caught flat-footed. So yeah, I'd say somewhere in the February time range we went and updated that list.
And then,
So, go ahead.
because I would like to talk. I mean, at this point, when you start to look at that list, walk us through that process. I mean, you have that realization in February. All right, I got to go through the list. You did this thing last year. Maybe even take us back to last year, or what is that process of, here's the list of guys I'm going to have to reach out to?
Yeah. So two parts of the process. One is, the collecting of names. I'm just kind of go and it's not rocket science. Anyone could kind of pull this together. Just okay. A lot of times it's going to be successful head coaches that are at a reasonable spot that we could try to attract, and or assistant coaches at schools that are having some success, that probably have some connection to this part of the country, and or have been in the Valley. I struggle with high major assistant coaches that have never been at a mid-major or low major level, because too often I find that those coaches will see a job like Drake for what it isn't, as opposed to what it is or what it could be. And when you find a coach who currently is at another mid-major or a low major as a head coach, they're only going to see Drake for what it is. We've got a lot of stuff compared to that. But if they have only been at that highest level, have not dealt with our type of a budget or how we travel or how, who we can recruit, that adjustment can be tough.
Kind of a culture shock.
Yeah. And so I just don't think that those usually work out. And Darren, even though Darren came from a high major program at that time, I mean, he cut his teeth in the Valley. I mean, right. he knew this area. And so those would be the kinds of assistant coaches, the folks that I typically look for. But so that's the kind of the formation of names. But really the more important piece is just trying to figure out the criteria. And so I really fall in love with criteria and not candidates. And so I really try to build that out. What are those things that we're looking for here? And what is it that, so then once I got the list of names and the criteria, then I'll run those names kind of through the prism of criteria, and just and whether that's through conversation I have directly with them or conversations with people who I know them. And that will kind of help filter the process out and usually kind of narrow it down for me. And then from there, we'll get into further conversation.
Real quick, so you will, during the season, it's okay, it's customary for you to reach out to a coach or an athletic director, or not a coach?
I would not. That's not my style. I mean,
Okay. Okay. Would
I
you
don't feel
reach
it's
out to, okay,
appropriate.
so you're
Yeah.
trying to filter your list, and again, in preparation. Does a phone call happen to an athletic director?
It probably is. It's probably going to be an indirect call. It's probably going to be somebody who knows, okay, somebody who may be in that
Okay.
league and say, hey,
Okay.
give me some thoughts on some of the people. And I may not ask about a specific person. I
Okay.
may say, hey, what are your thoughts? Like, I'm not, I don't need to know about your guy, but just what's going on in your league these days. What are your thoughts? Or I'll find somebody,
Okay.
who may know someone somewhere else, or I'll have someone in my past who will have crossed paths and say, give me, if I really know someone I can really trust them, then maybe I can divulge some names and try to get some more information. But if my job isn't open yet, like I'm not going to call any other coach like that. That's just me. That's just how I operate.
Okay.
How much, obviously money plays a part of it, salary for a coach, but NIL. You said yesterday that you were ready to up the NIL for Ben McCollum if he were to stay. What does the Drake NIL look like? How competitive can you be in that NIL space? And if the House legislation gets approved like we think it's going to, how much are you going to set aside athletic budget-wise to pay players even out of your own athletic budget?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's all relative to who your peers are. So we're not going to be swimming in the same waters that
Yeah.
SEC schools and some of the top Big Ten or Big East schools, or you hear some of the numbers out there, is just staggering. But relative to our peers, we've been very competitive in the Valley. I think that the first couple of years we were at or near the top. This past year, I think we probably slid to 3 or 4. I feel pretty confident. I know who 1 and 2 were in our league in terms of kind of the NIL stuff. They're collectives. The work that our collective has done, we've got some guys there, Ryan Boatman, Kurt Brewer, Mike Nixon. There's a whole group of folks that have just really come on strong the last month or so, put us in a position to be very competitive. Like I think we will be at the top of the Valley this next year, if it gets to that point. So I feel like what they've done, how our fans have reacted to it, has been phenomenal. It's not everything, and we have to be really careful of this too, because there's oftentimes you got to make sure that you're not getting mercenaries. You're not just getting folks who are just hired guns that are just going for the top dollar. It still comes down to culture. Like we've been successful, I really believe, in a lot of our sports because of what our coaches have developed in their locker room. Like we've got amazing kids on the men's and women's side in a lot of our sports, and we don't outspend folks. There's a lot of things that we aren't. We know who we are, and it comes down to those relationships. It comes down to the development of our student athletes on and off the court. It comes down to the relationships between our coaches and their student athletes. There's the relationship on a campus between a coach and student athlete is unlike any other relationship. Faculty would love to have that type of relationship with their students. And our best coaches, they create those really genuine and authentic relationships that will last through time, that our athletes know that our coaches care about them more as people than they do as players. And what makes it also unique at Drake is our fans are the same way, that they don't just want to know someone because of what jersey number they are. They want to get to know them as a person. And I know that's a big deal because we've had players leave the program that don't really realize it or embrace it or understand it or appreciate it until they go somewhere else and they see that it's very different. And so those have been some pieces that have been unique to us. And as we go into this next process, and invariably there'll be some coming and going. I'm sure, as there always is with a coaching change. I'm sure that'll be a big part of it when I have conversations with coaches, is what's their history with roster management, and how have they built a roster when they've lost kids? How have they built it back up? Has there been a significant drop off and then build it back up, or have they been able to maintain it somehow? Because we've been really fortunate to be pretty successful in a lot of our sports for a number of years in a row now, and we haven't had significant drop off. And I think it goes back to the plans that our coaches have put in place, how they've implemented, and then how they've had to adjust to the evolving environment that we find ourselves in.
Brian Hardin joining us on the Rush Radio show at the rushradio.com. So after this, you become a one-man College of Cardinals, right? And sequester yourself, and we don't see you until you name a coach, right?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My oldest son just walked up the door. He probably heard the ring chimes go off on my door as he was walking down to the bus stop to head off to middle school today. Before I jumped on here, I said, all right, I'll see you when I see you. Have a great Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. And of course he's of an age where he's trying to figure out who's on the list, but I don't share with him because I don't, knowledge is power. I don't want to put him in a position where his friends or even some of his teachers will kind of try to figure out what's going on. And so he may know before anyone else does, but it'll only be about 4 or 5 minutes.
I love it. All right. I said this yesterday, and so I want to ask you if this is true. Yeah. Does the success that the team has had, quite frankly, and we can go back as far as you want, but it's been success for the last near decade. Does that make this hire easier in any way?
Good question.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if it makes it easier. I mean, I certainly feel the pressure to maintain this thing and keep this thing going.
Yeah. Okay.
The interest is greater, and so it probably makes me have to dig a little bit deeper to make sure that the interest is for the right reasons. I think there are probably some folks that see, well, gosh, the last 3 Drake coaches are now in the Big Ten. I would like to get to the Big Ten. I like to get that payday, so maybe I should get myself to Drake. But that's not a good enough reason for me. That's just not going to work. I don't want somebody coming in here with one eye out the door already.
So safe to assume your phone is ringing more than it had before, as opposed to. Okay,
oh yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, both the quantity and the quality of the calls are significantly greater now than either of the previous 2 times I went through this process on the men's side.
Okay. Cool.
All right. I know you got to go, but can I give you a name for your list? Can I give you a name for your list?
Oh, geez. Here we go.
Are you going to say Fran McCaffrey?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I bet he fits the criteria. Valley guy, head coach, small major. I'm an Allen Huss guy, because Allen was at a high point. He played at Creighton during the Valley years, was an assistant under Greg McDermott. You brought up something very important, is that when you hire somebody, not only do you have to fit the criteria, but I think you have to understand the Iowa landscape and the Valley landscape. Understanding the Valley is huge, and that just fits the criteria. So you don't have to take my advice. I'm just throwing it out there.
I thought you were going to suggest a coach swap. That's what I was thinking.
No, not a coach swap. But Allen Huss is my guy.
Yeah, no, Allen's a heck of a coach, and certainly, we've had success going to the McDermott tree once before. His situation at High Point, man, he is relative to his peers, he has lapped the field down there in terms of the type of support that they receive, both in terms of what they have in the personnel side and what they're doing on the NIL piece. He's got a pretty good thing. He may view like this is a lateral move at best for him, because his next move is probably up there. But he's awesome.
Last question, time frame. When do you hope to make an announcement? When would you like to say? I mean, did you have a goal in mind?
I don't. When we did the football search, I knew I had to get done before Christmas, just because my wife would have killed me if I ruined the holiday. And so we don't have something like that coming up on the back end here.
Oh, so Joe Woodley was an impulse buy.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. That's right. So I go to the supermarket
because you said you like to do a lot of dive into a guy, and obviously you didn't do your homework on Joey, because clearly,
you've
known Joe since you were 10.
14, yeah, when they moved to West Des Moines from Davenport.
All right, so
I don't know. I mean, it could take 5 days, 10 days, 50. It'll take as long as it needs to make sure we get the right person in here.
Okay,
excellent, Brian. Thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, guys.
Let's catch up
up,
soon,
man. We're
Wonderful.
lucky to have
Appreciate
you.
It.
Keep
All
going.
Right.